This is TrueGrit.
Welcome back, guys, and let's get started with the 6th video of the archery series. Today we're gonna see how to remove the air shocks if your bow has them, cams, modules and limbs, and how to put them back. All indispensable work that you need to know how to do to be able to work all around on a bow. Later in the series we're also gonna learn to change limbs and modules, and we're gonna learn if and why you need to change them to fix some problems that the bow may present. As usual, follow each step carefully and have the bow manual available, which is always the starting point on every work that you do on your bow. We need to remove string and cables, and to do so we need to first remove the air shocks, otherwise they get overstretched when the limbs extend. Super easy. Put the bow on the vise and with an hexagonal key remove the locking bolt of the air shocks on both sides. Let's proceed to remove the string first and then the cables. Put the bow well centered on the press so that the cams are completely free, and crank it up 3 or 4 twists, as much as you need to loosen up the string. Get the string off the cam on one side and then do the same on the other side. Of course, if you're working on a bow that doesn't need to be retuned, clip with a paper clip both ends of the string together so you don't lose twists. We don't need to do it because we're gonna retune the bow back to the factory specs, and that's gonna determine the number of twists that the strings are going to need. We're gonna see that in one of the next videos. If you're working with our DIY press, release it completely up until you free the bow, because the press has a small excursion, which is not enough to completely open up 3 limbs. So we're gonna let the limbs hang on the cables, and then we're gonna re-put the bow in the press and re-squeeze it a couple of twists, just enough to loosen up the cables. Free the bus cable on both sides and remove it, and do the same with the control cable. Here as well, if you're not completely retuning to factory spec the bow and you're working on a bow that is already tuned, clip both ends of the bus cable and control cable together so you don't lose twists. Once you're done, completely release the bow press. The bow is going to do a little pop at the end because the press doesn't have enough excursion. That's perfectly safe for you and the bow as well, because the bow is under very little pressure. Let's put the bow back on the vise and proceed to remove the cams. A little piece of advice: keep the spacers in order and separated, don't mix them up, top and bottom, right and left. They may all be of different sizes. Especially on the bottom cam, spacers are quite often not the same because the cam is not supposed to work perfectly centered between the limbs. Let's start with the bottom cam. Let's remove the pin of the cam axle on one side, pushing it on the open side with a flat piece of metal. Then gently slide the cam axle out and collect the spacer on one side, then keep sliding out the axle and remove the cam, and then collect the spacer on the other side and put everything back together, including the pin, so you don't forget the position and you have it safely in there and you don't risk losing anything. Simply repeat the procedure with the top cam. Push out the pin, remove it, slide out the cam axle, collect both spacers left and right, keep them separate. Bus cable knobs left and right, they are the same but keep them separate. Put everything back together, the axle with the spacers on the left and the right of the cam and the pin, so nothing get lost. Now that the cams are off the bow, let's take a minute to identify where to check the module's model and size, the adjustable draw stop peg and its position. Only on the bottom cam, top cam is fixed draw stop, and the cam model and size. Same for the top cam, module model and size engraved on the module, cam model and size engraved on the cam, and you can see right behind the fixed draw stop. And on the other side, always starting from the bottom cam, the 2 hexagonal screws that you need to remove the module, and same on the top cam, the 3 screws that you need to remove the module, and the fixed draw stop that it's one piece with the module. Let's now proceed to remove the limbs. We'll clean them, inspect them, and we'll put them back on the bow. Little piece of advice as usual, keep top and bottom and left and right limbs separate and in order, because they may all have different ratings. They don't have to be rated at the same tension. Actually, they are most often rated at different tensions, so they're not interchangeable. On hoik bows, each limb has at the end on one side a little hole that perfectly fits on the pin that is at the bottom of the limb bracket. That's to prevent the limb to slide out of the bracket while you're using the bow. To remove the limb, you gotta push it outwards so that the back pops inside and gets freed from the pin, and you can slide out the limb from the bracket. Thoroughly clean limb brackets and the limbs with silicone oil. Please only use silicone oil on the carbon fiber. That will protect the bow parts from water, humidity, sunlight a little bit, and will make your bow last longer. If you have an air compressor, blow every part with compressed air, so you push the silicone oil into those little groovings and joints. That will help protect the bow as well, and will prevent water to nest in all these groovings and affect the structure of the carbon fiber. When everything is cleaned and lubricated, slide the left limb inside this bracket with the button hole facing downwards, and do the same with the right limb, and then push the top of the limb inwards so that the back pushes outward and the holding pin on the bracket perfectly slides inside the hole on the limb. Repeat the procedure with the top limbs. Keep left and right separate. Thoroughly clean everything with the silicone lubricant. Blow everything with compressed air, and then slide back in position the top right and top left limb. On this side as well, push the top of the limbs inwards so the back pinhole clicks into position. Let's clean the AirShox. No silicone oil in here. The rubber of the AirShox needs to grip on the AirShox mini limbs, so don't use the silicone oil. Just clean them with a rag or paper and blow them with compressed air if you have. And very quickly, keeping spacers on the right spacer on the right side and left spacer on the left side. Let's clean the top and bottom cam as well, only with compressed air and a rag. Thoroughly clean all of the bearings where the cam axle is going to spin. No oil on the cam, because the strings needs to run through it and you don't want to damage the string with any chemicals. Only a little bit of silicone oil inside the bearing just to protect it and lubricate it. And always put everything back together, cam axle, left and right spacers and pin, so you don't risk losing anything. Let's then proceed to mount back on the bottom cam as we did when we removed the axle. Only remove the left pin, leave the right pin of the axle on, slide the axle in through the right limb from the right side, then the right spacer, then the cam, the left spacer, and then the axle through the left limb, and put back the pin. Very easy. Same exact procedure for the top cam. Remove the pin only on the left side, slide the axle out. Just be careful that on the top cam, the pegs of the two jokes of the control cable, they gotta stay outside the limbs. So first one peg on the axle, then the axle through the right limb, then right spacer, cam, left spacer, then another peg of the joke cable, and then in the end the pin. Always give the cam a spin, make sure that it spins through, no wobbling, no off-center spinning, no vibrations, and that means that the bearings of the cam are in good shape and they don't need to be changed. And now for the last part and probably the most important of this video, let's adjust the limbs bolt to make them ready for the setting of the bow. Always start with the bow manual. You need to know for sure what's the maximum excursion of the limbs bolts, which on an oil bow is usually 8 full turns. That means that when you start with the bolt fully screwed in, fully cranked, maximum pressure on the limbs, You can release pressure, meaning unscrew the bolts, maximum 8 full turns. More than that is not safe. Also, if you follow the previous videos, you know that inside one of the limbs you're gonna find the specs of your bow, a little bit of an explanation on the draw weight of your bow. This one, for example, is a 60 to 70 pound draw weight. That doesn't mean that it's a bow that you start using a 60 pound and then as you improve you can crank it up to 70 pound just because you're stronger or you're more experienced. That means that the draw weight can range between 60 minimum and 70 maximum, and that is the range that you can use to tune your bow. It doesn't make any difference if your bow is a 64, 63, 68 pound draw weight, or if your arrows are flying 3, 4, 5 foot per second slower or faster. That doesn't mean anything on a bow. What is important is that the bow is tuned, groups well, shoots straight, both with the field tips and broadheads. That's very important to understand what we're going to do right now to make the bow ready to be reset to factory specs and then perfectly tuned to shoot straight and group perfectly. In fact, we're gonna tighten up both the upper limbs and bottom limbs bolt all the way in. And then with a light color marker, possibly white, we're gonna mark the bolt position against the limb pocket. So while loosening or tightening, we can count quarter turns, half turns, 3/4 turns, and full turns. Then top and bottom limbs bolt, starting from the all tightened position, we're gonna release them, so loosen them up 4 full turns, both top and bottom of the bow. This way we're gonna leave available 4 full turns tightening and 4 full turns loosening, which is, you'll see, more than enough excursion to perfectly set the bow to factory spec and then perfectly tune it. And the bow is ready for strings and cable to be put back on, and that's what we're gonna see how to do in the next video. And guys, once again, if you like the video, please help out the channel supporting with a like and subscribing.